Welcome to this week's episode of On the Tigers. I'm Delaney Barrow, joined by Andy Hewling. And on top of our usual lineup of winter sports this weekend, including gymnastics, women's and men's basketball, softball will be throwing the first pitch of their season tomorrow, and baseball is rapidly approaching with their season opener next weekend. Baseball will begin its spring season next weekend when they host Presbyterian. Andy, last year's season got cut short, obviously, because of COVID. The team's been on about an 11-month hiatus. What are your expectations of this team after such a long offseason?
I think they have a lot of potential to be a good team in this league. I know the SEC is really tough when it comes to baseball. You got teams like Florida and Vanderbilt and Mississippi State out there. But, I mean, it really gives Auburn a chance to show everyone what they're made of. And I think Ryan Bliss is a guy that can bring experience. I know he's up for preseason awards already. So I think, he's going to create that veteran leadership for those guys. And I think Auburn's pitching staff is also rapidly getting better, too. So I think Auburn could show potential to be a really strong side in the SEC.
I agree. I think Auburn baseball this year has a lot of potential. Head coach Butch Thompson was talking about how he believes this is one of the most talented rosters he's had since he's been at Auburn. But it's funny because last week, or earlier this week, when the SEC coaches had a preseason poll, Auburn was ranked 6th out of the 7 SEC West teams. And Coach Thompson was a little shocked at that because, like you said, they have a really talented lineup, particularly when it comes to pitchers. And they have 7 of their 9 starters come with College World Series experience. They only lost 4 players last year. Many players opted to return with their extra year of eligibility, but some of the notable losses are Connor Davis and Matt Scheffler, just to name a couple. But this team has a lot of talented returners, especially at the pitching mound, like we were talking about. Walk-on Richard Fitz, he's been tabbed with some preseason honors. Ryan Bliss, Rankin Woolley, and this team has a lot of potential. I know they'll be looking to prove themselves just because they were looking to prove themselves last year after coming back, going to a College World Series. The season got cut short, didn't even play half their games, didn't make it to conference play. And so I think this season they're really going to be looking to prove themselves, and I think they have the potential to make it just as far, if not further, than they did 2 years ago. Softball will throw out its first pitch of the season tomorrow when they host Southeast Missouri State University. Andy, this is another team. Their season got cut short last year, 11-month hiatus. What are your expectations of this particularly young Tiger team?
Absolutely. I think, it will be a learning process for a lot of them. They've got a lot of recruits in, a lot of freshmen like you talked about. So, it's going to be a new team. I think a lot of people are, we're used to like some of the old names like Alyssa Rivera and even their pitchers. And I just think, Auburn will bring in a new squad with Nikki Dean this year, and I think Samantha Yarborough is one to watch for. She's actually up for the USAA Player of the Year Watch Award right now. So I think, she's going to be looking to get a lot of good performances on the mound. So I think Auburn, it will be interesting to watch and see how they start out their season.
It will be interesting. And honestly, I think this team is a really good mix of returners and true freshmen. They signed 8 true freshmen this past year, number 4 ranked recruiting class. But there also are several big names returning with that extra year of eligibility, including Justice Perry, Alyssa Rivera, and Tannen Snow. And Snow actually won't be able to see the field this year because she suffered a knee injury. So that is disappointing for Tiger fans. But with that returning experience coupled with the new players, I think that Coach Mickey Dean has a lot to work with this season. And this Tiger team, they looked like they were going somewhere last year before the season was cut short. So I think they have a lot to prove, and they have faith in themselves. And I think that they're really going to come out to play. And I think they're going to start this season hard and fast, and especially this weekend against Southeast Missouri. 2 teams have never met up before, but they will be playing them 3 times to open the season. And I think they're really going to be looking to prove a point and say that this is what we missed out on last year, and this year is the year that they're going to make a statement. Next up, we have gymnastics. Auburn will travel to Columbia, Missouri tonight to take on the Mizzou Tigers. Andy, this team is coming off of a very close loss to number 2 LSU last week, a meet full of career and season highs. What are your expectations for the Tigers going into the meet tonight?
Absolutely. I think, Coach Grabo has really been talking about the energy that Darian Goborn has brought to the team. I think this week he was very complimentary of her, and especially after her performance against LSU, scored a 9.975, her career high on the floor. And it could have been a 10 easily. I mean, I think everyone was asking for it, but, she just didn't get it. But, still, though, it was a heck of a performance on the floor. And, she's just bringing that energy every meet that they have. And I think, her performances are contagious for the other team. I think the way that she performs and just acts around the team, I think, that she's such an example to them. So I think, her and Drew Watson are really just carrying this team. But they, like you've talked about earlier, they have a lot of young people who are stepping up for them too. So I think Auburn's really just putting a lot of their performances, and just doing excellent on every rotation that they do. So I think, obviously SEC play, it's been tough, it's been hard, and, they haven't won a meet yet, but, they're coming up against some of the best teams in the country. So you can't fault them for that, but I think the way that they're performing is just fine for Coach Graba's expectations.
I agree. I think that Coach Graba, especially in his press conference this week, he was talking about how pleased he is because even though, like you said, they have not won a meet yet, but they've continued to improve. Each meet, they've set new career highs, season best. And you mentioned some veteran players, Darian Goborn and Drew Watson, but like we've talked about, this is a young team. Over half of the possible routines tonight will come from sophomores, one of those being Piper Smith. We've mentioned her before, very talented, set a couple career bests last week. Most likely will be looking to build upon those performances tonight. But it really is impressive what the Tigers were able to do last weekend hosting LSU because that is the number 2 ranked team. That is a very talented team. They narrowly lost, and I think that's really reassuring for how the rest of the season will go. And Coach Graba definitely agrees with that, and he believes that they're a really good team, and the only way to go from here is up.
Well, it was a great meet last Friday. Thought the energy level was really good. We've been pushing really hard to give a lot of opportunities for girls, and I feel like it's paying off now. It's been a little inconsistent on the road here, but it's really starting to pay off. We're a pretty deep team, and we're a really talented team. So, we just have to continue to bring the same energy, and I think we'll have good results moving forward.
Women's basketball traveled to Athens last night, but fell in a close contest to the Georgia Bulldogs after the Bulldogs pulled away in the third quarter. Andy, what did you see last night that you're expecting the Tigers to capitalize on this weekend when they host Alabama?
Well, I think the biggest thing, we talked about how they just tend to fall behind late in the game and it's just not enough for them to come back. But I think, honestly, Scott Grayson, she had a good game in the second half. She was really slow in the start, but she put up 12 points, and I think, that was a good performance from her, even though Unique Thompson was carrying the load like she always does, 22 points, another double-double for her. So I think, obviously Unique is the leader, but you've got to have more performances from the other ladies. But I like how they do defend. I think, that's something that we've noticed a lot from Coach Flo, is that she's really aggressive in the way that they defend. They do a lot of double teaming, a lot of pressing, trying to get the opponent to earn the basket. And I think, they do a good job of that. But when you're playing against a good team like Georgia, you've got to do more than just defend well. You've got to score. And they were 28% from the floor last night, and that's not going to cut it in SEC play.
Yeah, you mentioned the Tigers' defense, and they did a really great job of forcing those turnovers last night. They had 28, capitalized on those for 21 points off turnovers. And obviously you mentioned Unique Thompson. She had a killer game, 13th double-double of the season, 55th of her career, setting records every time she steps foot on the court. And honestly, Scott Grayson, she did start off slow, but she picked it up. And this Tiger team has some talented players just spread across the court, coming off the bench, starting. They always have a rotating starting lineup, which I think has been a struggle for them throughout the season, not having that consistency. But like you said, they always fall behind in the second half of the game, and then it's hard to get back up there. I mean, you mentioned defense doesn't cut it. They have to also capitalize and bank those shots. But I think that this weekend when they host Alabama, honestly, Scott Grayson, last time they played, Tigers did lose, but they'll be looking to split the series, and Scott Grayson had a really great game last time. And I think every single player, no matter what team you're on, they're going to play better because it's an in-state rivalry. And so I think the Tigers are going to be looking for that upset. They're not expected to win, but they definitely have all the potential. It is going to be a home game. They do have that kind of advantage. And I think that, once again, Unique Thompson will try to take the team and lead them. Honestly, Scott Grayson will be behind, but there's also other players like Romy Levy. A couple games ago, she had a killer three-point shooting game, and I think she's going to be looking to continue to build upon that. She didn't really make her mark so much last night, but I think that this weekend, especially because it is Iron Bowl of women's basketball, they're going to be looking to prove a point. But that game will tip off at noon on Sunday. Tomorrow, men's basketball will travel to Lexington, Kentucky to take on the Kentucky Wildcats at Rupp Arena. I need to start with Vanderbilt first. Okay. 3, 2. Men's basketball snapped their 3-game losing streak with a win over the Vanderbilt Commodores on Tuesday night. Andy, what do you think proved key in this win?
I thought really defense, especially in the second half. I thought Auburn played a lot better down low. They were able to block a lot of shots, and Vanderbilt kind of went cold. I thought for both teams it was a really sloppy game. So, I think it was really, 20 points kind of in the first half, and it was just really, really sloppy. A lot of both teams were, missing shots, and I think Auburn figured out in the second half. Obviously, Sharif Cooper was the difference, scored 18 points in the second half, and I thought his performance was kind of the difference in that game. But Auburn, on the offensive side of the ball, has got to work on turnovers and just not losing possession. They seem to have fumble fingers sometimes when they get the ball down low to the big guys like Dylan Cardwell and even Jalen Williams. So I think, obviously this is going to be a big game this weekend that they're coming up against, so they're going to have to improve that when they go to Kentucky.
Yeah, you mentioned the Tigers' defense, and Coach Pearl has been harping on that the whole season, and finally the Tigers showed some semblance of listening to that. They did a great job. They won the rebound game. Like you said, Sharif Cooper, 18 of his 19 points came in the second half. But I was really impressed by Jamal Johnson, who had 19 points off the bench. And he's a player who really proved himself on Tuesday, and I think the Tigers needed that win more than they thought they did, because that 3-game losing streak, if they had let that continue, there was no chance that the Tigers would have been able to overcome Kentucky this weekend. But Bruce Pearl, even though the team did win, he was not entirely pleased with the team's performance, and he was really talking about post-game just how they have to continue to build, and they can't continue to play that sloppy if they want another win.
It's great to get a win on the road in the league. Got to fight through some adversity. I think some of it is, was a little self-inflicted. Sharif played great in the second half. Didn't have a turnover in the game. That was just fun to watch, Let him get downhill, and he's so hard to guard, and so unselfish. Thought Jamal Johnson was terrific in the first half. Really picked us up. Devin Cambridge in the second half. Stretch gave us some great minutes off the bench. Picked us up on the defensive end. So it was a good win. But we made a little progress with our defense. Offensively, way too many turnovers, and we didn't execute very well. So got to play a lot better if we're going to win again.
The Tigers will travel to Rupp Arena to take on the Kentucky Wildcats tomorrow. Auburn is looking to sweep Kentucky, which they've never done before, and the last time the Tigers won in Rupp Arena was in '88. Andy, what will be the key tomorrow to getting that win in this tough competition?
Absolutely. I think Auburn's defense and just starting off fast on offense is going to be the key to winning this game. I know, last time Kentucky left a lot of shots that they could have made out there on the court, and I thought, the way Auburn started in the first half of the first game between these two sides, Kentucky could have beaten them if they were having a good day, but for the Wildcats, they weren't having a good day, and Auburn was able to hang in with defense and with Sharif Cooper having a good second half. So it'll be interesting to see how they play out, but Auburn's definitely going to have to be the more aggressive of the two sides.
I agree. Aggression will be key tomorrow, but also Auburn doesn't want to be known as a second-half team because you can't always rely on that. And even though they were down by 2 to Vanderbilt on Tuesday and they ended up coming back with the intensity necessary to get the win, that just can't always be the case because you're going to be playing a lot of teams that are a full game team. They don't just shine in the second half, they shine the whole game through. And the Tigers just need that depth. They need to start shooting hot. Jamal Johnson started hot on Tuesday. Sharif Cooper didn't make the majority of his baskets until second half. But the Auburn bench is really coming into play. They had, I think, 27 bench points on Tuesday. And I mean, there's so many big names on the team with Cambridge and Flanagan and Thor and Cardwell. And this team does have a lot of depth. They just have to make sure they're playing smart and not rushing it. And we've talked about it before. This is not the same Kentucky team that it's been in previous years. But I think that the Tigers need to make sure that they don't let this get into their heads. Just because they won once this season doesn't mean this next win is guaranteed. And they have to just focus on this game, prioritize it, can't look too far ahead. And I think if they're able to do that and continue to capitalize on the turnovers, forcing those, winning the board game, I think that the Tigers have a really good chance of shutting Kentucky down and getting a solid win this weekend. For our final segment, we have our weekly pick'ems. First matchup of the NCAA is Tennessee versus LSU. Andy, who do you have?
I've got Tennessee in this game. I thought they had a really good performance against Georgia. They're starting to play some really good basketball, and I think they're looking to finish up in the top 4, at least in the SEC, and get a good, nice bye going into the SEC tournament.
Tennessee has been looking good. Their season has been improving, but I'm going to have to go with LSU in this one. Cameron Thomas leading the team in points scored, doing a really great job of being that dominant role whenever the LSU gets their wins. But they've also been averaging over 80 points per game, and I think that against Tennessee, who usually has a rocky season up and down, I think that LSU is going to get this win. Next up, we have Arkansas versus Missouri. Who do you have?
I've got Missouri in this game. I think they're playing some tough basketball. They're more than likely looking like they're going to finish second behind Alabama. I like Drew Smith. He's a really good point guard, and I think he's going to lead them past Arkansas. Now, don't forget, though, Isaiah Moody for Arkansas. He's a good player. Kyle Vanover. Arkansas is going to give them a fight, but I think Missouri wins in a close one.
I agree. I think this is going to be a close one, a really fun game to watch. But I, too, am going to have to go with Missouri. This is a team with a lot of senior leadership. You mentioned Drew Smith having a great season. And I think that Arkansas will give Mizzou a run for its money, but I do think that the Tigers are going to get this win. Next up, we have Georgia versus Alabama. Who do you have?
I've got Alabama in this game. It's really simple. I think Georgia, they're a good team, and they'll give people trouble, but Alabama, I think they'll get the win with John Petty, the way he's shooting. He can pop a three from anywhere and basically swish it, so I think Alabama wins.
Yeah, you mentioned Petty, but Alabama also has Shackelford and Herbert, and this is a very talented team, top of the SEC, and I really don't think Georgia has much of a chance of the upset, so I'm going to have to go with the Tide on this one. Last up, we have Auburn versus Kentucky. Who do you have?
I have to go with Auburn here. I think Kentucky is just kind of having a bad season. I mean, I don't think it's anything relating to the COVID or anything like that. I just think that they're not gelling together as a team, and you just can see that game in and game out that it's just not there right now for Kentucky. And I think Auburn has the intensity to go in there and get a win. I think it'll be close like the last game was, but I think Auburn can win this in Lexington.
I agree. I think Auburn definitely can win this. My money is on the Tigers. I think that going in, they have a lot to prove because they just snapped their 3-game losing streak coming off of a win against Vanderbilt. And they're really looking to prove themselves just because they haven't won in Rupp since '88, like we said before. And so I think that they're really looking to prove a point. They have nothing to lose this season. And so I think they're just going in there looking to upset other teams' seasons, and that's why I think they're going to get the win over the Wildcats. Now for our NBA matchups. First up, we have Milwaukee versus Utah. Andy, who do you have?
I've got Milwaukee in this game. I think Giannis, after his game against Phoenix, he's going to be looking to prove a point now. Utah is a good team. Donovan Mitchell, X factor for them, but I'm going to go with Milwaukee in a close one.
I, too, think this is going to be a close game. I'm going to have to go with the Jazz. They have Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. Milwaukee does have Giannis, who put up 47 points in their last game, even though it was a loss. These are two very talented teams, but I think Utah is going to get this win. Next up, we have Memphis versus Los Angeles. Who do you have?
I've got Los Angeles in this game. I think LeBron James, Anthony Davis, they are the two guys on that team that lead all scorers. And I think just the way the Lakers are playing, they're playing like they did last year, which led them to a championship. And I think they're heading in that direction right now.
You're exactly right. The Lakers are playing reminiscent of how they looked last year. and that proved to work out really well for them. And Memphis has been struggling, and so I think that LA, with their more consistent play style, and obviously LeBron, Davis, I think that LA is going to get this win. Next up, we have Indiana versus Atlanta. Who do you have?
I've got Atlanta in this game. I think Indiana's really been struggling on the defensive side of the ball, and I think Atlanta with Trae Young and Cam Reddish, I think they're just a strong team. And they gave the Mavericks a run for their money the other night, and I thought, Trae Young could have easily won that game himself. He had a really good night against the Mavericks, but I think tonight they'll put it all together and get a win.
I'm going to have to go with Indiana on this one. Atlanta, they have been looking better, especially now that Trae Young is back, but Indiana's been pretty consistent in the rankings, and they've been really good in conference play and just play all throughout the season so far. And Atlanta, they've been off and on, but I think that with Young back now, they will put up more of a fight, but I'm still going to have to go with the Pacers on this one. For our last NBA matchup, we have Charlotte versus San Antonio. Who do you have?
Well, LaMelo Ball is playing some good basketball for the Hornets. I'm going to go with Charlotte. Him and Gordon Hayward have been a real big difference for that team. I think the Charlotte Hornets will win in a close one. San Antonio's got some players that will challenge them, but I got to go with Charlotte.
Yeah, San Antonio does have some good players. DeRozan has really been leading the team. Charlotte also has good players. You mentioned LaMelo and Gordon Hayward, but I think that San Antonio is going to get this win. Charlotte, they have been putting up some good competition in their previous matches, but this is going to be a really exciting game to watch. I think it has the potential to be close, but I'm still going to have to go with the Spurs on this one. That's all we have for you this week. For more news and sports updates, visit our website at eagleeyeauburn.com or our Twitter at EETV_sports. I'm Delaney Barrow, joined by Andy Hewling. Have a great weekend, and War Eagle.